The piece goes on to talk about how President Obama also, despite the claims of his most rabid supporters, did little by way of closing Guantanamo. Both Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton and the Attorney General, Mr. Holder, had warned that the plan to close Guantanamo prison was in peril. This is as the Senate and the House, or I should say the House, was voting to foreclose this opportunity. They volunteered to fight for it on Capitol Hill, according to officials, but with Mr. Obama's backing, his chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, blocked them, saying health care reform had to go first. So he clearly did not fight for this. And at the very least, Hillary Rodham Clinton, a veteran of the Senate, and Eric Holder, the head of the Department of Justice, thought there was an opportunity to fight and to win. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put themselves on the line to say, I'll go down there and help you. When the administration floated a plan to transfer from Guantanamo to Northern Virginia, two Uyghurs, members of a largely Muslim ethnic minority from China who were considered no threat to the United States, Virginia Republicans led by Representative Frank Wolf denounced the idea. The administration backed down. So they're not solely responsible for this, but they clearly didn't fight for it. Goes on to talk about this Terror Tuesday and the secret nominations process, which is an invention of the Obama administration. So the definition of defining away the idea of collateral damage and defining whoever we hit with a strike, a drone strike, to be combatants or militants, that was not their idea. That was the Bush administration that the Obama administration continued. The setting up of the nominations process to kill people, that was their idea. Given the contentious discussions, it can take 5 or 6 sessions for a name to be approved. And names go off the list if a suspect no longer appears to pose an imminent threat, the official said. That part still just sticks in my head. I don't know how it is possible that you can go from being an imminent threat to, we don't have to kill you anymore. It seems to me that's a big red flag. There's something problematic with the standards and what it takes to get on that list. If you can drop off that list without being killed, you should not have been on that list in the first place, it seems to me. A parallel, more cloistered, so instead of 100 people, it's probably smaller, selection process at the CIA focuses largely on Pakistan, where that agency conducts strikes. Mr. Obama must approve any name. He signs off on every strike in Yemen and Somalia, and also the more complex and risky strikes in Pakistan. Now remember, when Eric Holder was questioned on how this is legal, he gave a speech where he sort of said vaguely, like, this is not a violation of the Constitution. We provide due process, but due process need not be judicial. It can be not judicial. Due process could just be guys sitting around a table, 100 people, let's say, maybe less, maybe more, who sort of debate whether or not this person should be killed. And the profile of these people range from being a member of the CIA to being a member of counterterrorism to being a military personnel. And then the president, I guess. So you've got all different opinions in that room as to whether or not it's permissible. Uh, it goes on to say the administration's very success at killing terrorism suspects has been shadowed by a suspicion that Mr. Obama has avoided the complications of detention by deciding, in effect, to take no prisoners alive. That's very sweet. Then there's a wonderful story of a guy named Batullah Mehsud, the leader of the Pakistani Taliban. Because I know there's some people who listen to this program, and I know obviously there's some people who don't listen to this program and say, well, look, we've got to fight and kill people who are an imminent danger to this country. And that's just the bottom line. I'm not going to shed any tears for that. And I'm willing to sacrifice the notion of rule of law, the notion that the president doesn't have the unilateral right to target and to assassinate somebody. I mean, that was something that I think even 15 years ago, there was very little debate about. Which is not to say that it didn't happen. It probably did. But there wasn't a public assertion of that right. There was some notion that if we do this and we get caught, we could be in trouble. And why does that make a difference? Because as you begin to relax these things, as you begin to codify and legalize what was once illegal, it just creeps and creeps. So when you say it's okay for the president to assassinate someone who poses an imminent threat to this country, and it's okay for the president to determine that and to give them due process, and we're talking about, a citizen in some instances, but I mean, if you can do it for a citizen, you can do it for anybody. It's okay for due process to consist of just guys getting together and talking. Because, once you establish that principle, why do we need judges at all? Why do we need criminal judges? Why do we need a trial? Why do we need a trial if you protest and you're arrested? Why do we need a trial if you are criminally negligent? Why do we need a trial if you've killed somebody, if you're accused of killing somebody, if you're accused of stealing something, if you're accused of vehicular homicide? Why do we need a trial if you get a DUI? Apparently, you can have due process by some other forms. Let's just have you're arrested for DUI. We'll just have a representative of SAD and a victim of a drunk driver and a Mormon who doesn't believe in alcohol. They'll get together and they can have a panel and they can provide you with due process. We're going to discuss whether or not you should go to jail. So there's a story of this guy, Batullah Mehsud, the leader of the Pakistani Taliban. Make no mistake, I would imagine I wouldn't like this guy if I met him. And I would imagine very much he would dislike me as well. Apparently, the Pakistani government wanted him to be killed. He did not meet the Obama administration's criteria for targeted killing. He was not an imminent threat to the United States, but Pakistani officials wanted him dead, and the American drone program rested on their tacit approval. The then CIA director, Leon Panetta, said taking out the Pakistani leader, Mr. Panetta warned, did not meet Mr. Obama's standard of near certainty of no innocents being killed. In fact, a strike would certainly result in such deaths. He was with his wife at his in-laws' home. Well, they must have been up to no good. Many times, General Jones said, this is the former NSA chief, Jim Jones, said in similar circumstances at the 11th hour, we waved off a mission simply because the target had people around them and were able to loiter on a station until they didn't. But not this time. Mr. Obama, through Mr. Brennan, told the CIA to take the shot. And Mr. Massoud was killed along with his wife and, by some reports, other family members as well, said a senior intelligence official. Maybe kids, maybe not. There was no explicit evidence that they were innocent. So here we now have this targeted assassination for someone who is not a threat to the United States, with full knowledge that they would be killing collateral. Well, it's not. Is it collateral damage? These people are up to no good. Is it even collateral damage when you know before you press that button that that civilians are definitely going to die? I think they call this mission creep. And today, the Defense Department can target suspects in Yemen whose names they do not know. They call it TADS, for a terrorist attack disruption strike. And then it touches on the case of al-Awlaki, the American, by American, I mean American citizen, who was also a Muslim cleric, who would get on YouTube, say bad things about President Obama, and encourage people to attack the United States. Not unlike we see with Google militia. Find some guy wearing a mask in Michigan talking about how he wants to strike the U.S. And then apparently they found evidence that al-Awlaki was engaged in operational terrorism. So he supposedly was helping terrorists. And they talk about this piece about how President Obama justified killing an American citizen without a trial. They write, the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel prepared a lengthy memo justifying that extraordinary step, asserting that while the Fifth Amendment's guarantee of due process applied, it could be satisfied by internal deliberations in the executive branch. The notion that is one sentence in this massive piece, and that's all the debate it gets. There's no one saying, legal experts have never heard of this. There's no one saying, hey, this is a problem. Why do we need trials at all if this is the case? I mean, couldn't we clear those dockets and all those criminal cases across the country? Couldn't we save a lot of money if we just had a panel of people who just we're going to do 5 minutes on this one. Up or down, yay or nay. Mr. Obama gave his approval, and Mr. al-Awlaki was killed in September 2011 along with a fellow propagandist. Those propagandists up to no good, ladies and gentlemen. No good. The guy's name was Samir Khan. He was also an American citizen, was not on the target list, but was traveling with him on that road of No Goodville. The no good, up to no good highway, I think they call it. And still, at the end, President Obama gets all sorts of kudos. John Bellinger III, a top national security lawyer under the Bush administration, said that because Mr. Obama's liberal reputation and a softer packaging, he has been protected from outrage. After the global outrage over Guantanamo, it's remarkable that the rest of the world has looked the other way while Obama administration has conducted hundreds of drone strikes in several different countries, including killing at least some civilians, said Mr. Bellinger, who supports the strikes. I mean, he's cheering for this. And then there's a couple of sort of notes of what could be problematic. China and Russia are watching, and the United States has set an international precedent for sending drones over borders to kill enemies. But we're so far beyond the notion of efficacy in this debate. And as outrageous as this is, our option for the presidency is Mitt Romney. And it leaves me in a, I should say, it heightens my quandary over who to vote for. And I still probably will vote for Obama. The American public doesn't care about this, sad to say. In fact, I imagine to the extent that the American public engages in this story, it would benefit him. But the idea that there is no outrage about this, even if it is one which is simply howling at the moon, even if it is one which has no leverage whatsoever, and by that I mean does not come with the threat of voting for Mitt Romney, the absence of outrage at this is stunning and depressing. And I don't know what else to say.